The only way Alabama is going to be able to keep this close is they're going to have to shoot a lot of threes, and they will shoot a lot of threes, and they're going to have to hit them. If I'm UConn, I make Alabama beat me on the inside. I don't care what it takes. Extend that defense. Keep those shooters from firing it up, because that is the reason why they are here. They got hot from three-point land. And here's the thing. If you get hot from long range, like a lot of teams do during the NCAA tournament, you'll win. Doesn't matter who you are. But specifically when you're a team like Alabama that really specializes in that and isn't really interested in playing a ton of defense, I ultimately think that we're seeing the money move in UConn's direction. I mean, what they're doing right now is historical. They've covered the spread in each and every single game. And going back to last year, they've won every tournament game. Going back to last year by double digits, I got to go with UConn here.
I think you play UConn until they prove otherwise, because they've covered every single game in the NCAA tournament since 2022, and they have had some big numbers to cover. So I think this is one of those wagons that you do not stand in front of. I do think maybe there's some other angles here. Whenever there's a long layoff, I think that it's tougher on the offense. It's tougher for guys to make shots out of the gate when they have been waiting around, when they've been riding around on planes in the middle of the night. And also it's a change of location. So I think the momentum kind of stops. First half under 76.5, I think, is a pretty solid look. Alabama, I think, is going to struggle to make some of those threes when they're facing this UConn defense, who was top 30 in defending the three-point shot. This is a great defense. First 3 rounds, I think, of the tournament, not a single team scored more than 60 points against this UConn defense. Maybe the sabotage factor, though, is the Alabama defense that's been a problem all season long, but yet here they stand in the Final Four. Do we think this defense reverts back to the mean when it comes back to Alabama's problem on defense?
Yeah, I think it could, because here's the thing is that who do you focus on? Do you know what I mean? Like UConn can beat you in so many different ways. If you're not a great defensive club, then that's okay. Maybe you say, all right, let's take away this team's primary weapon. Like, let's slow down Dalton Connect, the guy who's going to score for Tennessee. I know Tennessee isn't involved here, but you get the point. Whereas with UConn, I mean, my God, are they going to go inside? Is Klingon going to crush you? Is Tristan Newton going to kill you on the fast break? Is Cam Spencer going to hit from deep? So they have so many different – UConn is unbelievable.
So we have the most outstanding player odds on the board right now. Zach Edey, your favorite, followed by a couple of players from UConn at plus 340. Is there any value in this market? Like, I guess you could say if you want to play something on UConn, maybe this is it.
That's correct. I think Tristan Newton, who a lot of people feel should have been the Big East Player of the Year and was not over Devin Carter, I think there's value there as well. There's certainly value on Klingon. It looks like it's going to be a Purdue-UConn matchup. If you want to bet Purdue, what I would do is bet them right now to win the tournament at like plus 210, plus 230, because they're not going to be that much of an underdog if they face UConn. But because I think UConn is clearly far and away the better team, and I think they win regardless of opponent, I would look to take one of those players, Newton or Klingon. I could see Cam Spencer. You have to get really hot. Castle's tremendous at plus 2,000, but he's primarily a defensive player and he's great at locking on the perimeter, which is not going to win this award. So I look at Newton or Klingon at plus 340. Think about it this way. If I were to tell you that you could get UConn at plus 340 to win the title right now, you'd probably take it. So why not flip and take one of the most outstanding players from their team, from a Husky team I think is going to win the tournament?
Mike, before we let you go, we got a couple minutes here. Looking at NC State and Purdue again, can you quantify pressure? Because it's all on Purdue. NC State is having meet and greets at Applebee's, right? Like, there's no reason they should be here, and they can play spoiler, no pressure, whereas Purdue is trying to make up for what happened last year, and clearly they have the best player in the country.
Yeah, I can, because I thought the celebration with Purdue was a little revealing when they won that game. It was a little much, look, we were here. We weren't here since 1980. Look at us. I expect NC State to come out very strong in this game. So like a first half line for NC State, I think would be great. I think we're way overestimating Purdue's dominance in this tournament. They've played well, but look who they beat. Grambling, Utah State, Gonzaga, who is really limited, guys, and then a Tennessee team that, quite frankly, I don't think they beat if Santiago Vescovi doesn't have the flu. So Purdue is wonderful. They're fantastic, but their three-point shooting hasn't been great, and you don't want to play a loosey-goosey NC State team that's taking pictures at Applebee's here. I think the first half is very live, and I think things could get tight. I absolutely agree with you.
Everything's kind of fallen in line for South Carolina. They're massive favorites for a reason. I think this number is too big, but I do think it's interesting that Dawn Staley's club is just sitting here number one undefeated, and they're not really in the spotlight right now.
Well, because they don't have Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is even, superseding just women's college basketball. She has entered the realm of stars just in the sports world alone. So I think it's hard to go, against the supernova that is Caitlin Clark, who's going to be one of the best women's college basketball players of all time. So I think that's where, the problem is. But South Carolina as a team is very good, and they've got great players as well. And it is nothing that is, you can, drop a hat at, that they're undefeated on the season. That takes incredible consistency. And that's what you need for a deep run in March Madness, learning how to win in different ways. And so I do think South Carolina probably wins it. But again, this number is pretty big. So again, I'd go with my Wolfpack if I were to take a side.
Will you bet on UConn versus Iowa? And this is going to be Paige versus Caitlin, Paige versus Caitlin. And ESPN did a deep dive yesterday. And sort of the takeaway on each individual star is, well, Paige Bueckers is the more well-rounded player if you look at her complete game. But Caitlin Clark is clearly the better scorer, led the NCAA with 32 points per game this season, which I think is probably a pretty fair assessment. I will say at the same time, it's easy to categorize people and put labels on them. But remember, Caitlin Clark in that game against LSU also had 12 assists. So I think there's also a danger of putting these labels on players that isn't necessarily fair. I don't want to bet on this game, but I'm damn sure going to watch it.
Yeah, I think this is where casual bettor Chelsa is just like, we'll just take Iowa. They have the best player in college basketball. Why would you not take that team? It worked out last game, even though we thought LSU might have the deeper and the better team overall. But UConn does feel like a bit of a different animal here. The Huskies certainly have all kinds of talent. They have the coach who's been there and done that. I don't know much about the Iowa women's coach. Like, I honestly have no idea. But Gino Arima, certainly has the upper hand on anybody who is in the tournament right now. So I don't know. I think I would lean towards Iowa, but I'm not betting on it.
No, I get it. And you're right. All of the pressure is on Iowa. The pressure is not on UConn.